I'm virtually here with Dan Toliver, the co-author of the TODA Protocol and co-founder of Toda.Network. My first question for you, Dan, is essentially, what is the TODA Protocol?
Yeah, so TODA Protocol is a decentralized protocol for managing digital objects and their ownership. It allows you to express the ownership of a digital object in a very simple way, and it guarantees uniqueness of the ownership of that object and the proof of ownership of that digital object, despite not having any centralized list of those objects, which you could do with a database or you could do with a ledger. So in the absence of having a list of those objects, the TODA protocol gives you a way to still maintain uniqueness and to guarantee that your proof of ownership of that is the only proof of ownership for that particular object. That's a little abstract. If we take a step maybe to the side from that, we can talk about what decentralized technologies are in general and what they do. So from a system design standpoint, if we're thinking about decentralized protocols, then what they really allow you to do are to reduce the friction that's caused by lack of trust within your system between users or between entities in your system. So as a quick example, if you and I wanted to exchange some things of value, but we didn't trust each other, we could go out and find someone that we did both trust, and we could incentivize them to perform this escrow service for us. But we can introduce decentralized technology into that system and actually obviate the need for having someone provide that escrow service. We can now directly exchange the value without needing to trust each other. So, so the first question, if you want to use decentralized technology in your system, is there a lack of trust? Can this problem that I would like to solve using decentralized technology be expressed as a lack of trust problem? And if the answer is yes, then decentralization is probably a good way to go. And then for TODA in particular, you can ask a second question, which is, can this problem be expressed in terms of an ownership management problem? So does it involve proving my ownership of something, or does it involve transferring the ownership of something? And if the answer is yes, then TODA, again, is probably a really good fit for that. And if it's a situation where you're interested in transferring high volumes of things, or things that have relatively low value, then in some ways, TODA is really the only game in town in terms of doing that at scale, because of the asymptotic computational complexity of a transaction. So if we look at the per transaction computational cost, that tends to be linear in the size of the network, or the size of the maintainers of the system in a decentralized system if it's based on a ledger. But if you build a system that isn't based on a ledger, then you don't need to pay that linear cost. You can pay a log cost instead. And that means that as you scale up the number of users in the system, or the number of maintainers of the system, whatever you want, you can actually increase the number of transactions that can be performed as well, because you're only paying a tiny additional cost per transaction in the size of the entire system, which means you have more throughput for more transactions. If you're paying a linear cost per transaction in the size of the system, then as you scale up the system, each transaction costs more, and you can't fit any more transactions into your system. You're stuck.
That's a great explanation.